And today session, our fifth workshop today is on transport sector emissions, trends and management. So we are just waiting for the dignitaries to join and we'll start. So good afternoon. Once again, a very warm welcome on behalf of IIT Delhi Alumni Association. So IIT Delhi Alumni Association, in association with the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, is organizing the Mahaparivesh series of workshops. And today we are having our fifth session, which is on transport sector emissions, trends and management. As we all know, transport sector in India is expected to grow at a CAGR of 5.9%, thereby becoming the fastest growing sector of India's infrastructure sector. In order to create a world-class infrastructure, the government has laid significant emphasis on expanding and developing the sector across the country through several initiatives like the Bharat Mala project, electrification of railway tracks, focus on high-speed trains, the Sagarmala program, and by actively working on e-mobility solutions for clean and cost-effective mobility of the population. In addition, the key focus has been on enhancing the intermodal transport connectivity as well as the logistics infrastructure in the country through an effective and valuable public-private partnership. The government is also working tandem with automobile companies and relevant policy stakeholders to achieve the target of selling only electric vehicles by 2030 and has identified key areas related to transport mobility where significant policy reforms can be initiated. A system of smart transport infrastructure is imperative for connecting and inspiring economic growth in our country. Transportation industry is classified into majorly three segments, that is aviation, roads and railways. India has a road network of 5.3 million kilometers and witnessed 112 completed road projects via PPP mode and 150 projects are being completed. Transportation industry contributed roughly 6.3% of GDP and is majorly dominated by road sector. More than 50% of freight and 90% of passenger traffic are handled by road. Air pollution, particularly in the form of particulate matter, is a serious challenge in India, and transportation is a significant factor in the nation's air quality problems. According to the 2017 Global Burden of Disease, 1.1 million people die prematurely each year from the diseases directly related to air pollution, making it fifth leading cause of death in the country. Transportation sources account for approximately a third of PM pollution in India, and higher proportion of nitrogen oxides, another set of compounds harmful to human health. Because its vehicle fleet is small relative to its large population, India has low per capita transport emissions, but that fleet is growing rapidly. Total vehicle sales, including the motorcycles, increased from 10 million in 2007 to over 21 million in 16, and the total number of vehicles on the road is expected to nearly double to about 200 million by 2030. The harmful effects of vehicular air pollution need mitigation. So today's session is on transport sector emission trends and management. And we are very pleased to have you all on behalf of IIT Delhi Alumni Association and the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. Now I am very pleased to invite the President IIT Delhi Alumni Association, Mr. Ravindra Kumar, for the introductory remarks. Mr. Kumar has his BTech from IIT Delhi 1987 batch, and he has an MBA and LLB. He has been a technocrat for 5 years, a bureaucrat for over 17 years, and now has been an entrepreneur for the past 12 years as an owner of Global Tax Guru. He has been involved in policy advocacy related to blockchain, drones, and legal metrology. For 3 years as tax expert, he has answered readers' queries on the Economic Times portal. And under his dynamic leadership, we've been able to launch several initiatives like the Mahaparivesh lecture series with the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. So welcome, President IIT Delhi Alumni Association, Mr. Ravindra Kumar, for his welcome address.
Thank you, Dr. Geetanjali, for such a wonderful and nice introduction. I welcome and wish you all a very happy new year. This is our first webinar from IIT Delhi Alumni Association, and this is the first, with the IIT Delhi Alumni Association and Maharashtra Pollution Control Board 2 also. So this is our first webinar series as far this year is concerned, and we have come from through 2020 as a country with a greater resolve and with a lot of learning, and when we have set one example also to the next, to the whole of the country, that how we have fought this COVID. And today our honorable finance minister has also presented the budget, and it says that it's pay the way for the Atmanirbhar. The Atmanirbhar also we have discovered in our pandemic time. With this and this economic survey, as they say that we are going to have V-shaped recovery. So a lot of hope is there, and the theme, today's workshop theme, which is the transport sector emission trends and management. It's a very apt theme as for the we are concerned as a society, as a nation. And so before our experts take to the webinar to the further level, and they will share their thoughts and perspective. First, I would like to welcome our today's experts, subject experts, Dr. Modgare, he's from Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. Professor Balaram Gurjar, he is IIT Delhi alum also, but as of now he is participating as a Dean of Alumni IIT Roorkee. And then we have our own Mr. Parthaa Bosu. He is Environmental Defense Fund. So we have a different three perspectives and different three subject experts. So they will take they will handle the technical part of the workshop series. I will just share my just general perspective, which I have just I'm aware of as far this topic is concerned. So when we talk about the transport, the emission is synonymous with the transport itself. I mean, and you can say there's a later on the carbon foot. Our honorable minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, has announced few days back that if we replace the toll plaza with the GPS based systems, it will generate around 1,34,000 crore in next 5 years. There is a small technology change, how the technology played the role in cutting the congestion and the emission. And similarly, the UK government has announced, uh, which is will pay the way for the green industry revolution, that by 2030 they are stopping the sale of the new diesel and petrol car, and this will create a green job. And this will I mean, they are the first country in the Europe Union to take this drastic step, and I am sure that India will also follow very soon, because India is very active as far as the climate change and all these issues are the concern. Then the third part, which I think that already Geetanjali has spoken, the mobility. Now, when we talk normally the new mobility, mainly we are talking about the electric mobility. And electric mobility also, the solar also is going to play a very big role. And our country has taken a lot of initiative as far as the solar as a source of power, to like we have a one world, one sun, one world, one grid, one solar, World Bank. India has taken that initiative. So I hope the uh, shifting to the GPS based the toll system, the moving to the I mean making road decarbonized, through the use of the phasing out the fossil based vehicle. I mean, moving more to the green technology, technology based fuel system. And especially I think India is a very solar based nation. सूर्य देवता हमारे पे बहुत मेहरबान है. I think this using the solar as a source of to drive the transportation will this play a key role. With this again I welcome all the distinguished speakers of today. Now the Professor V.R. Gurjar also as a visible. Welcome, Professor V.R. Gurjar, your alum also, and
Thank you.
Mr. Parthaa Bosu and Dr. Modgare from Asa Pollution Control Board, and Josna, Secretary IIT Delhi Alumni Association, and Dr. Geetanjali, General Secretary IITDAA, and Mr. Kalpin Sukla and Rakesh Bansal, and other EC member. Let me see who from the participant list, if I can find out who are my colleagues are there. And and I welcome to all the attendees who have taken the time, because I think they may be very curious to watch the debate, not the debate, the analysis going on, the post-budget analysis. Even I am from the, I am in our service, so that is our like a D-Day. I mean, that is the final day, a lot of activity happen, how it is going to impact the tax implication. It's a basically policy statement. Budget is always a policy statement, and this is a lot of things happen, not only for the common citizen, but for others. So I am very thankful to the all attendees, alums, and the attendees, and experts also who have taken the time, and my fellow EC members and past president and other dignitaries that they have taken the time to be a part of today's workshop. That's equally important. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to welcome all the audience, attendees, dignitaries. Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Mr. Ravindra Kumar, for your welcome note and your remarks. Thank you so much. And I am aware that, sir, you have to leave to the
Yeah, yeah,
hospital for your eye
yeah,
checkup. So, still,
yeah,
we really appreciate your spirit that despite being unwell and having been undergone 2 operations, you are still with us and you are
yeah. Thank
giving
you,
your wishes to the event. Thank you so much, sir. Take care.
thank you,
And
thank you.
once again, a warm welcome to the
Mm.
Mahaparivesh series, Transport Sector Emissions Trends and Management for today. MPCB is having a meeting today, so probably Dr. Mod Ghare and Mr. Shingare won't be able to join us right now. Uh, Continuing with the expert address for today. Distinguished address today is by Professor Bhularam Gurjar. Professor Gurjar is a professor in civil engineering, Dean of Resources and Alumni Affairs, and also the head for Center for Transportation Systems at India's premier technological institution, IIT Delhi, IIT Roorkee. He holds a PhD in the area of environmental risk analysis from IIT Delhi. He's our alumnus, followed by a postdoctoral research at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. He has about 25 years progressive professional experience in industry, teaching, training, research, and consultancy. He has co-authored 9 books and 140 publications. He has received several awards and fellowships, including the prestigious Advanced Postdoctoral Research Fellowship of the Max Planck Society, Germany, and UKRI grant to visit University of Surrey from 2012 to 2013. Professor Gurjar is among the leading academicians and researchers who have worked extensively in the area of environmental science and engineering, especially focused on air and water pollution, environmental quality, health risk assessment, which is reflected in his several highly cited research papers published on these themes. So once again, a very warm welcome, Professor Gurjar, to the session. And we are very happy to see you once again, being our alumnus. Welcome, sir, and thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule. We understand as a dean you are very busy. So thank you, sir, and welcome again. Please start with the session, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Geetanjali, and many thanks to Ravindra Kumar ji uh, for giving me this opportunity to share with you some, research findings of my group. And namaskar to all panelists and my colleague fellows there. So this is a brief presentation. In fact, I would appreciate Ravindra Kumar ji has set the agenda, and very briefly he has touched the spirit of this presentation, I would say. And now I would carry on or share with you these some figures, some data, some information. So in a systematic manner, we would lead to that conclusion, which already Ravindra Kumar ji has drawn. I appreciate very much for that. So we are talking about transport related emissions and their trends and how do we manage them and why they are so important. In fact, emissions are from, several sources. As you know, whenever, when civilization started, we started to burn anything to derive the energy out of it. So the pollution also started, but the intensity or the extent of pollution was not a problem at that time when population on the earth was very less and the impact was not so significant. Rather, I would say that when fossil fuels burning started and these kind of stacks um, were shown in several advertisements, so those were the signs of progress. At that time, plumes were shown like a trophy. Oh, this is industrialized area, means wealth, lot of wealth is there. But later on, when industrialization became very intense, when urbanization became very dense, and the amount of fossil fuels burning increased so much that it impacted the air quality, then we came to know that, oh no, this is also the side effect of it is very dangerous to our health, to our environment, to our property. So then we started to study the air pollution, and when we study the air pollution from scientific or technological viewpoint, then we go for a systematic kind of studies, like we define sources, we see, we quantify them so that we can understand which is the major source, where we need to, uh, mm, intervene through policy measures or through technological interventions. Those kind of things we need to see. So see, you can have a look here, like if we define air pollution sources, then there are natural sources and also anthropogenic sources. Within the anthropogenic sources, there are point sources or area sources, line sources. You can define in several ways according to the requirement to understand the problem. You can also define major sources, minor sources, or criteria pollutants sources, health related emission sources, industrial sources, domestic sources, power plant sources. Means there are various ways to look at this problem. Now, if we also try to visualize the sector wise contribution of the air pollutants in India, you can see that these uh, just so industrial sources as well as vehicular sources, they are quite dominating sources in terms of air pollution. And of course, biomass is there. Then dust construction activities are there. Resuspension of dust is also a major source. So if we look at this problem, how this impact our health, these are a few data set which can help us to visualize the gravity of the problem. Like 13 Indian cities are among the world's top 20 most polluted cities. So according to this study of World Health Organization. And then vehicular exhaust emissions are the dominating culprits for the deteriorating air quality in urban areas. And we also look at like how much percentage of those vehicles are plying in different cities. Like if we consider only the large cities or metropolitan cities, so 30%, 32% around of the total vehicular population is there only in these big cities. And when we compare cities, like you can say that Delhi's vehicular population is more than the total vehicular population of Chennai, Bombay, or Kolkata. So these kind of figures can give us idea that what kind of problem has been created by these transportation emission sources. Now, there may be sources, like as I said, that you can define sources in different ways, like exhaust emissions or non-exhaust emissions. Then within non-exhaust emissions, brake wears or tire wears. Exhaust emissions, you can categorize them into different pollutants like particulate pollutants or gaseous pollutants or hydrocarbons or sulfur dioxide. Those kind of things you can see this picture in different ways. Now, if we look at the problem centric kind of information in bullet form, then the real problem is related like high vehicular density, as I said. And within that high vehicular density, you would come to know that maybe in some cities two wheelers are more, in some cities four wheelers are more, in some cities commercial vehicles are more in number. So they result in different kind of problems. Like if two wheelers are more, then hydrocarbon emissions may be more. But within two wheelers, if there are four stroke engines, then problem will be different. Okay, NOx emissions may be more or like that, right? Then older vehicles are more because of our economic considerations or reasons. We tend to own the same vehicle for several decades, unless there is a law and we have to discard it, right? So then there are other infrastructure related issues also, like adulteration of fuel and inadequate inspection of maintenance facilities. And there are other issues which we can look into as a part of transportation emissions. Now there are good things also, like if we look at emission standards from 1991 to 2010, you will see that these emission standards have improved in the sense they have been stringent. Like earlier CO emission standard was in 1991 like 12 to 30 gram per kilometer, which is now like only 1 gram per kilometer. So there is a lot of improvement in terms of policy measures, and you can see this in different vehicles also. Then why this problem is there. For example, the steep rise in emissions in mega cities, and this population in mega cities also very large. Please excuse me for a minute. Let me have water. So, like see here, this around 55% of the population in Delhi resides within 500 meters of roads. So you can, think of the high level of exposure they come across through the air pollution sources, especially like, these vehicular emissions, which are from polluting vehicles. Now, if you look at like impacts, what kind of health impacts may be there? So the CO has the direct impact because it can, react with our blood, hemoglobin, and the oxygen carrying capacity can be reduced. Indirect in the sense like it is converted into CO2, so it also contributes to greenhouse gas and climate change related kind of things. Then hydrocarbons also direct health impact are there. Indirect in the sense that they are like precursors of ozone. Okay, similar things happen to the NOx and particulate matters. They have direct impact. They can, reduce the visibility. They also have other kind of climate change related direct impact because of like they can change the insolation, and they can change the the solar radiation. Then SOx means oxides of sulfur. They have direct because when we inhale, they will, affect our health. Also, they contribute into acid rain, all NOx as well as SOx, and like NOx can also contribute into eutrophication because of dry deposition or wet deposition, and then they add to the nitrogen content into water bodies, and they also contribute into secondary aerosols like sulfur and NOx oxides. They contribute into secondary aerosols or secondary particles, so they also reduce the visibility. This then what kind of health effects they can have? Like some pollutants affect or impact our lungs. For example, sulfur dioxide or particulate matter, or lead can impair our IQ level if it is exposed to children. Benzene is carcinogenic. So different pollutants have different health effects, and there are certain epidemiological studies in different countries, including now India also has these studies. So indigenous studies are also there, which links the health effects of different pollutants. Well, if we see like in case of like Delhi, so we estimated different health effects, including like total mortality or cardiovascular diseases or respiratory mortality, hospital admissions, etc. And we got to know that over the years, of course, there is a change after CNG implementation. There is a reduction, but overall, if you look from this, then there is a slight increasing trend. So we have to change that trend. And emission trends also you can look at, like reflection is there of reduction in emissions of these different sources because of CNG emissions are less than those diesel related vehicular emissions. So there is a positive change, but because number of vehicles are increasing day by day, so again that impact does not go for a long. So that we need to see that maybe the public transportation system, if it is more efficient and effective, we can curtail those emissions. But because in case of megacity Delhi, like we estimated emissions, and although the NOx, CO, and these non-methane VOCs are mostly from vehicular emissions. But we should not forget that at that time when we estimated the emissions for Delhi, these coal-based power plants were also a big source of air pollution or air pollutant emissions. But if we consider only the NOx or CO, then of course this transportation sector is uh, the responsible, you can say. And then you can look at these how these health effects are there, for example, and what is the region like status. For example, a very simple reasoning can be seen into the infrastructure versus the vehicular population. So if we compare of certain decades, like 3.8 times road increased, the length of the road increased, but the 20 times of the vehicular population increased in that particular decade. So similarly, you can see in different cities what kind of impact has been there for infrastructure and relation of the emissions. Now if we see the timeline, then again I would say that there are good things, because since 1990 to 2013, if you look at, so there is a lot of positive policy implementations to reduce, like Delhi Metro was introduced, and then unleaded petrol was introduced in 1999, then CNG. So though there are so many things which are going on. BRTS was also introduced, but somehow it did not pick up in a big way in comparison to other cities. But there are good policy measures, and also like technological or fuel related intervention which has played good positive role. So if we go for like mitigation measures focused on transport emissions, then there are certain things which are very simple also, like avoid, shift, improve. So we have to avoid those travel demands. So can we for example, like these days we are going through online classes or online work at the home. So these travel demands have been reduced significantly. So those kind of things can be looked into, that is it really necessary to travel from one place to another? Can we do something without traveling? So those things should be encouraged. Then shifting, like you know for non-motorized modes or to public transportation systems, so that the emissions of privately owned vehicles can be significantly reduced. And then we have to improve technologies or fuels quality or those kind of things. So these are the ways we have to look at these emissions or reduction of emissions. Then inspection and maintenance programs, or scrapping the old vehicles, or retrofitting for new fuels or less polluting fuels. And this is the biggest I would say the game changer, the national clean air program, as you might be knowing, most of you might be knowing. So there are like 50% of the action points which are focused of this particular program on transport and road dust, kind of transport emissions and the road dust. Lot of emphasis has been given on electric or clean energy based vehicles, as Ravindra Kumar ji has also highlighted that we are blessed with so much solar energy, and other renewable resources are also there of energy, whether it is wind and so many things. If we invest a lot of resources in that direction, so not only the job creation will be there, but also we will be moving towards the green energy and away from this carbon based economy. And that will be the win-win situation, because the emissions will be very less, only like from manufacturing plants, etc. And at least in the cities where these vehicles emit lot of exhaust emissions at the breathing level, that will be eliminated in a big way, and the health benefits are going in tremendous way because of these interventions. So these are the bullet form these interventions or mitigation measures which are included in NCAP, like widening of roads, promotion of bioethanol because of its benefits. It's a clean fuel in comparison to other fuels. Traffic congestion we have to reduce, and then remote sensor based pollution under control systems, and many other things are coming up day by day, and the government is very serious, and all stakeholders basically are participating through NCAP. And I again repeat that it would be a game changer in terms of improving the air quality in our surrounding. These are the references, and I thank you for your attention for this presentation, and I thank my students who have contributed, for data collection and information for this presentation. So this is all, and thanks again to all of you, and I wish all the best for the great success of this webinar series and workshop. And I would take leave. I'm sorry, there are other things we have to take care. So please excuse me on that point. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Professor Gurjar. We appreciate, thank you so much for actually explaining such a vast topic in such simple manner. You've covered everything from emissions, then non-exhaust emissions, then the trends, and then how the policy measures have helped us. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Thank you so much. Warm welcome. And again, thank you from MPCB's and IITDA's behalf. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Now, for the next expert address, I would like to invite Mr. Parthaa Bosu. Mr. Bosu leads the air quality work for EDF in India. He is also the lead India advisor for the Environment Defense Fund. He is an expert in air quality management with more than 18 years of experience working in the multi-sectoral environment. He's worked with the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, where he was part of the team that developed the computerized emission check system for vehicles in India and designed and implemented training with various state pollution control boards. In 2010, he joined the UN partnership Clean Air Asia as the India representative before becoming the India director, where he led the development of world's first walkability survey app. He also structured the country's first and only Green Freight India working group, which works to reduce emissions from and improve the efficiency of freight trucks and includes members from top private sector companies, think tanks, academia, and Niti Aayog. So thank you so much, Mr. Parthaa Bosu, for joining us today. And please start your presentation.
Right. Thank you so much, Geetanjali. That's quite a welcome. I hope my screen is visible and not my notes page normally.
Yes, your screen is visible. Please continue.
Yeah, it's a problem with latest technology. You have multiple screens and you don't know which one is visible. And I think a good prelude has been provided by Geetanjali and Professor Gurjar. And transport, as Dr. Gurjar also said, that transport and industry remain as key sources when we talk about the air pollution threshold. And but then when it comes to transport, we look at the vehicle and we do not see ourselves sitting in the vehicle. So whenever we look at mobility, we should always look at both the components. It's us who are sitting in the vehicle actually. And if there was a way we could have changed our habits, it would have been a lot easier. But till that time, I guess it's the policies and which is going to help us, which is actually putting the difficult task in front of the government. And since both Geetanjali and Professor Gurjar set the base, talking about the entire mobility plethora in front of us, I'm going to take up something which is just 5% of the entire automobile pie, which is the freight transport, which is the freight. And the reason why I want to take up is because freight is something which is invisible, but is so impactful in multiple ways that it is not something that can be ignored ever, and not in the coming future. So freight, to many simple ways, our ways of demand, our ways of freight, and how the government has structured it makes a lot of impotence. If you remember the lockdown period of the COVID era, there were videos coming up from different parts of the world where it was showing that such and such supermarket in US or such and such supermarket in Europe is empty, and sanitizer is not available. People are storing food is not available. I still remember in Jersey City where some of my extended families live, and they said that they did not have the supermarkets open and nothing was available. So they used to go and store and come back, and that took a couple of weeks and months to normalize. I don't think we face that in India. We are number two in COVID impact. We were impacted not less, quite well. But then our freight system was so efficient that I don't think we had a situation where milk was not delivered, or you did not get your bread and butter or eggs. And knowing that if you're living and sitting in a metro city, it is entirely on the freight systems that you depend, which is getting your, whether it's the medicine, whether it is the bread, butter, jam, and eggs for your breakfast. So freight systems are definitely very, very important, but freight is not alone. If you look at the motorization, which Professor Gurjar talked about, if you look at the motorization, you will realize that our country is uniquely going up when it comes to the motorization. And normally motorization is very well connected with GDP, and more is the freight. So as in when your GDP, as the same elasticity is followed in the GDP. So if your GDP is growing about 6 to 8%, then commercial vehicle sales and the freight sector will continue to grow in the same 6 to 8%. And while it grows, it basically shows how stable your economy is and how stronger it becomes. So more GDP, more Atmanirbhar Bharat, better freight systems, better connectivity, and more stronger economy and GDP numbers. But then the problem that happens is that the road transport, which is growing at the rate of 8%, and is helping India's industrial production to triple in 20 years. So road freight is becoming bigger. So earlier there was a time when rail used to be responsible for carrying the goods across the country. Near about 70% plus percentage of goods were being transported using rail. Now that position has been taken up by the road freight, and which is nearly 70%, 65 to 70%. And freight alone costs about 35 to 60% of the total logistic cost. There is a big connection of freight with fuel, with time, and with labor. And because of its inefficiencies, it has a high impact on your emissions, on your air pollution, and your climate impact. So we will talk a little bit about that. And before we get into this, we will also talk about how the society is perceiving green and forcing certain shippers, that is the manufacturers, to be seen as green. So a lot of times you will notice a lot of companies such as IKEA, FedEx, etc. They will actually talk about how their transportation has happened, how it is green. Of course, as I said, that we are the center. It is our ways of thinking, it's our ways and our practices that has a very big impact. I mean, can we not delay our demands of ordering from Amazon? We just say that prime delivery, I want it tomorrow, expert delivery, express delivery to be delivered in 6 hours, today 24 hours, whatever it is. So those kind of demands, they continue to remain, and they have a very big impact on the country. So one hand, I talked about the economy and how air pollution, etc., is playing a role, but the economy is something which I can't omit, and trucks and freight remain a very important contributor to our stronger economy. But then it also has a very big impact when it comes to emissions, the fuel usage. So the truck alone is responsible for guzzling nearly 70% of the fuel that is used by the transport sector. It is responsible for nearly 23 to 24% of the road accidents, that national road accident data that comes out, the vehicle transport kilometers, travel kilometers, and noise in the cities, and of course the congestions. So the trucks are generally invisible. No one talks about trucks. No one talks about the logistics, how it is being planned. But the moment you hear about trucks, it is when the air pollution is high and the Supreme Court has put a ban on entry of trucks in Delhi or something like that. And that's when you hear about trucks, because other than that, trucks never come into the discussion at all. But the point is that is that a way how we can proceed? Because how long can you survive without trucks bringing your commodities? Your sofa delivery can be delayed and your bed delivery can be delayed, which is not important. But what about your medicines and your groceries and your other livelihoods? So freight is something very, very important. It has a very strong connection with our GDP. You can't ignore it. It is very important for us to reduce our logistic cost and to improve the overall efficiency of how this system performs. Whether there is a need for that faster delivery, whether there is a way to collaborate those deliveries, whether there is a need to improve the fuel efficiency of the trucks, to bring the better engine efficiency of the trucks, use of the tires. In our country, you'll be surprised that less than 10% of the country's trucks are using the latest level radial tires. Forget about tubeless tires. We have not even reached there. So we are still using about bias tires, as they are known as, and they are being used largely at about 70 to 80% of the truckers. You will be also surprised to know that nearly 60% of the truckers in the country are individuals who own one or two trucks. So it is an extremely fragmented industry. It is massive. So therefore, making any kind of policy change by the government and to penetrate it to the last trucker is also a very big challenge. If you look at how our efficiency is being driven, you'll understand that there are a lot of lacunas in the whole system. As I talked about the fragmentation of this industry, it is a cohesiveness of massive multiple small players, which makes it very, very fragmented. The level of awareness is extremely low. If you talk to a trucker and you talk about new technology to be used in his truck, whether it is a new tire or any other new safety device or any of the fuel saving devices, the level of awarenesses are very low. The access to insurance, the access to any kind of a finance mechanism to buy new trucks or to even buy tires for his truck, which is running the system, is something which they're not. So as a result, what we have on the roads are the old trucks. Of course, Professor Gurjar also talked about, and we also heard that the Transport Ministry a couple of days back has announced that they are going to put 8% as environmental green tax on older vehicles. And as a way, they are trying to push for the scrappage policy, which is very important because then you can expect certain new and safer trucks to come on the road, which is going to be also more efficient. But overall, with the current scheme of things that we have in front of us, we are running an extremely inefficient system, which is making the whole trucking industry a very low profitability business, because of which, again, the level of money that is available for any trucker to spend on better quality of trucks or safer trucks or more efficient and latest trucks is also rare and difficult, and therefore is causing a very high emissions. We did a survey in India and we found that more than 50% of the shippers pay more for transportation. So apparently transportation costs should not be more than 7 to 8% or less than that. But then in India, the transportation costs are much, much higher. So the shippers are paying for, there are a lot of destinations where the truckers does not get a return freight to bring the load. So therefore he's charging for the shipping of that particular good for both these directions. So he's going to drop the goods and come back empty because the chances are that he's not going to get load. Of course, you will say, oh, no truck comes empty, he will find some load. Yes, but that will be part load, and which is again a problem because this is a big truck which is guzzling a lot of fuel and producing a lot of emissions. But then if it doesn't have 100% fixed load, then that's an issue. 83% drivers are aware that they are not able to save fuels and they want to save fuels, but they don't know how to do that. So this is a very big issue. We did a massive survey in 2015, 2016 in India, and this is a global number, but we found that the India numbers are absolutely spot on and similar. So where is India right now? So we have three categories in front of us. We have category number one, where there is an upgrade of roads happening and traffic is becoming controlled, and there have been restrictions being put. There is a lot of enforcement that's happening, and there is a lot of alternative fuels being pushed into the particular sector. There is another category, which is a second category, where a lot of upgradation of railways is happening, waterways is being used, new emission standards are being recommended by the government, and there are new freight towns and freight port cities which are being developed and which are being connected. And of course, the third category is the most advanced category, where freight is a part of the economy. The fuel economy standards are already in place. There is a freight parking system, and there is a freight trading system where every load of is being traded in order to ensure that the truck runs a full system. And then there are many other efficient systems and policies in place for betterment of the society, more efficient trucking system, and more superior logistic service provisions. I think India is already jumped the number two category and is trying to go towards the number three, which is the most advanced category. The Indian government is very gung-ho on having a very, very strong railway network, which is electrified. There are a lot of state governments who are working on emphasizing freight deliveries through waterways, railways, and many other modes of transport. There's a consolidation of consolidation centers being designed. The government is also building a lot of consolidation centers. And of course, there are a lot of new port cities and dry ports and freight villages which are being constructed. So government overall, I think, has gone beyond the second category. It is already getting into the uh, removal of diesel subsidy in a more constructed manner, and it is going for fuel efficiency, fuel economy standards. Tire labeling is something which is not yet in place, but then is likely to be in place very soon. So what do we require? I mean, in this kind of a system, you will realize that the complexity, even in the complexity, there are a role which is being played by different players. Unfortunately, a large part of the game is being played at the court of the private sector. They own the sector, they run the trucks, it is the shippers, and it is their system which they are. What the government is doing is basically it is playing the role of the regulator, and it is trying to bring the key stakeholders into the team. Now, you have to also understand that there is a limitation that the government is playing here, because the sector is massively controlled by the private sector. It is the truck producer or the truck manufacturer or the truckers themselves or the shipper itself. But now what is becoming very important is the government in the Ministry of Commerce, since it has now a Department of Logistics, this sector has a window to discuss with. Earlier, there was no parent ministry where the freight was being discussed as a subject. It was being produced by the heavy industry, was being operated by the road transport ministry. But then was the emission enforcement was being levied by the state government and the Ministry of Environment. But now with the Department of Commerce's Department of Logistics, there is a key role and a key window which is available to this particular sector. It is very important to understand the research universities are going to play a very, very important role here. We do not understand the freight industry very well. We do not have good numbers. We do not know about the practices, the trends of the freight industry and how the logistics sector applies. I think it is becoming more and more important that more institutional systems are being developed. There is a proper freight and logistic as a subject being taught, and more experts are in place who can help us in this. And while coming towards this, I would just like to leave two examples. So the US developed something called Smartway, which was launched in the early 2000s. So it is already 2 decades that the US has been running this partnership of private sector, government, etc., and has about 3,000 odd partners, which consist of both the shippers, the truckers, etc. Now, this has been very, very important, and this has also given a lot of emphasis to how the sector can develop partnership among itself, and it can be a huge amount of fuel and emission savings which is possible. Or for that matter, where the private sector works together, like Green Freight Asia, which is happening right now in Singapore, where it is a industry-led initiative. The private sector has come together and decided that we need to do something to ensure that whether, so example for that would be, for example, Honda is producing cars in the north and BMW and Hyundai is being produced in the south. So can there be a truck carrier which is taking the Maruti and Honda cars from north to south, and while coming back, the same truck carries BMWs and Hyundais and Fords? So all in all put together, I would like to end by saying that it is very much possible for us to consolidate our efforts to create a community of the freight industry, freight and logistic industry, which is going to be far, far more efficient. This way, this will give us more access to the last trucker to ensure that he gets a security of his job, he gets the support of finance and safety, and therefore is able to buy and receive newer trucks, newer vehicles, which is going to give us better profitability, and for him to have better access to newer technology and therefore much lower emissions. In all, I think it is an industry partnership that is required along with the research industry, along with the government, and this partnership is going to be key, and the industry cannot be the only leader in this. The government has to play a very important role bringing the research community together and design a carrot and stick policies so that much more efficient system can be designed for a better freight and more efficient freight for the country. Thank you, and I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Partha. Very, very valuable insights, and freight very well explained. The sector, very invisible, very impactful, and also for sharing the details, which I am very sure that most of us were unaware. So thank you so much for joining us today. And with this, we have come to the end of today's session. So I would like to thank IIT Delhi Alumni Association, the President, Mr. Ravindra Kumar, Secretary, Mrs. Jyotsna Bareja, EC members, Mr. Kalpen Shukla, Mr. Rakesh Bansal, for helping and supporting. From MPCB's behalf, I would definitely like to thank Dr. Maud Ghare, Joint Director, Air Pollution Control, on whose behalf we are doing this series for the city stakeholders. Once again, very sincere thanks to MPCB for sponsoring and helping us do this series. And I sincerely thank all the delegates and the participants who were with us today. So thank you so much. We'll be back soon with the next in the series. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you.